My wife said I was controlling for asking about her late nights. So I put the security footage on the TV, and her excuse fell apart instantly. I'm 36M. My wife, Rebecca, is 34. We'd been together 10 years, married 7. Our life was a usual grind, both working full-time, a mortgage, the dog, checking in when schedules were hectic. For most of that time, things were ordinary in the comfortable, unsensational way marriages become. Small frustrations, a shared sense of humor, routines. I never pictured myself as someone who would check a camera feed to prove what my partner was doing. I'm not proud of where things ended up, but I will be clear. The 6 months before this started with little things that didn't look like much at first. Rebecca's late nights at the office increased. A meeting turned into a client dinner. A client dinner turned into I had to stay and talk with a project lead. Those are plausible explanations in our line of work. What stopped feeling plausible was the rhythm. She was home fewer nights, often after I was in bed. When I asked directly about one night, her answer was annoyed, that I was being controlling, that her job had unusual hours, and that she didn't owe me a play-by-play of every late call. She used that word, controlling, like a finality. When I pushed for clarity after that, the conversation ended quickly with her calling me insecure and me apologizing to keep the peace. I didn't snoop through her phone. That's not me. We had, since buying the house, an array of inexpensive security cameras, porch, hallway, and a little one in the entryway because packages had been stolen in our neighborhood the year before. I had access to the feed because it was a household thing. We both could check deliveries, both could see who was at the door. I kept opening the app to look for a missed courier or porch activity, and I started noticing a pattern of timestamps. Rebecca would leave late, sometimes after 9, sometimes closer to 11, and be back well after midnight. The first few times, I chalked it up to work. The cadence over weeks felt like something else. One night, I came home early from a client dinner. The house was dark except for the living room clock. On the hallway camera, I could see Rebecca's coat still hanging, her keys on the bowl, and the dog asleep by the couch. I thought I was mistaken. Then I checked the front door clip from 2 nights prior. Rebecca left, walked down the steps, and 15 minutes later a man, someone I did not recognize, was waiting by a parked car a block away. They walked together toward the corner where a small group of bars sits. He didn't just wave and go. They moved down the street together. That clip changed the shape of my thinking. I didn't immediately confront her. Why would I? I knew what she'd do. Calm voice, hurt face, though I work hard speech, then the label. I wanted facts if I was going to do something that felt like an accusation. Over the next few days, I compiled clips. Rebecca leaving at odd hours, the same man waiting across the street. A motion clip from our hallway camera showing a jacket that wasn't hers hung near our door at 2:20 a.m. Another clip of Rebecca returning at 3:10 a.m. There were small corroborating things. A delivery receipt from a late-night food order with a note that matched the bar district, a photo of a jacket on the hall hook that matched the coat, and a clip of the stranger outside. It all sat on a flash drive on my desk for a week while I tried to collect myself and not do anything dramatic. The catalyst that made me act was not evidence anymore. It was the way Rebecca told a mutual friend at a dinner party that I was suffocating her by asking about her schedule. She did it in a way meant to get a laugh and change the subject, and the laugh landed with the friend who'd been on the fence about us. That night, I didn't sleep. I had to choose, keep being gaslit into apologizing, or make the pattern undeniable in a room where a few people we both knew could witness the same clips. I chose a blunt way. We had a small group of neighbors over for a quiet movie night the following Saturday. 2 other couples, pizza, the kind of informal thing that's more background noise than event. I asked my wife earlier that day if she could come a little early so we could share dinner. She said she'd be late because of a project review, but that she'd come. When she finally arrived, she was flushed with the day's end, kissing my cheek as if everything was fine. I waited until the group was settled on the couch. I plugged my laptop into the TV and said calmly, "There's something I want to show you all." I didn't frame it as an accusation. I framed it as, "Look at these. I want you to see what I'm seeing." The first clip was a front door timestamp of Rebecca leaving at 10:17 p.m. The second clip was the sidewalk camera showing a man standing by a car waiting. The third was a wider clip with the 2 of them walking together toward the bar strip. The clips were short, literal, time-stamped, and unedited. Watching your partner watch themselves on a screen is strange. Rebecca's face went through a sequence: confusion, embarrassment, a flash of anger. She first tried the old move, deflection, annoyance, calling me overprotective. But she couldn't argue with a timestamp and a moving image. One of the neighbors, Kelly, who always had a bluntness that made private things public in a kind way, asked, "Is that Sam from your team?" That question landed. Rebecca's mouth opened and closed. She said nothing at first. Then she admitted quietly that the man on the sidewalk was indeed Sam, a senior from her group who had been helpful with a client late that week. That admission pulled at everything. I played a couple more clips. In one, a jacket fell off the back of a chair, and you could see the same boot print on the sidewalk near a lamppost. The footage didn't scream adultery the way novels dramatize it, but it stacked into something unmistakable. She'd been leaving the house late, meeting someone in the bar strip, and coming back in the early hours. The controlling card she'd used in private no longer worked in a living room full of people who'd watched the same timestamps. The moment it was obvious, the room's energy shifted from the awkward joke of he's paranoid to a quiet, sharp attention. Rebecca's excuse, that she'd been bonding with a team member over project stress and that it was innocent, started to fracture. People asked clarifying questions instead of taking sides. She answered, and what came out was a mixture. There had been some late work, yes, but there had also been a few times she'd lingered with Sam after official hours and one night they kissed. Not a full confession at first. She protected herself, but enough that the narrative she'd been using to deflect no longer fit. I didn't crow. I felt rotten for making it public, and I knew a number of our friends would think I'd chosen the bluntest path when there were softer options. But I've been told repeatedly I was paranoid and controlling, and the pattern had continued. Having people see what had been invisible to them changed the room's ability to let her cast me as the villain. What followed in the minutes after was not cinematic. It was a small, brutal unpeeling. Rebecca cried. She asked for a minute alone and called Sam, then deleted the call when she saw me watching. One neighbor left quietly. Another asked if we wanted to talk after everyone left. The group dispersed on the thin edge of polite concern. Update, 5 days later. The days after were full of practical, ugly conversations. Rebecca packed a bag and went to stay with her sister for 3 nights. She texted me long messages that vacillated between apology and deflection. She wrote that she was ashamed and also that I had pushed her away with my questions. I bided my time. We had a counseling appointment a week after the night on the TV. The counselor asked for specifics, and the counsel was tedious but necessary. How much did we want to rebuild? Could trust be rebuilt if one partner had been meeting someone else after hours? Rebecca's career became complicated fast. Sam asked to be moved off their project, and their manager forced a mediation when their collaboration and late-night meetups became part of office gossip. Sam didn't last long on that team. The company transferred him to another office across town within a month. That part of the story is not why I did what I did, but it was an outcome I didn't anticipate, and it turned the professional stakes messy in ways that bled into our private life. There were rumors at work, and Rebecca had to navigate the fallout while we tried to decide if we wanted to stay together. In therapy, Rebecca admitted she'd been lonely and had let attention from someone outside the marriage feel like validation. She said the kiss had been a mistake, but also insisted it had not been about leaving. She wanted to fix things, she said, but she was also exhausted. I wanted to believe that. I wanted it badly. Still, every time her phone buzzed, I felt the reflex to check the rhythm of our house. The counselor suggested transparency steps, immediate disclosure of meetings that might run late, consent for overnight guests, and weekly check-ins. We agreed to some of it and resisted others. Friends split in a way I didn't expect. Some of them sided with me quietly. Others told Rebecca they could understand the loneliness that pushes people to foolish mistakes. A few people I'd assumed would be unequivocal found it messy and human and stayed out of it. That limbo was the hardest part, the one where nothing is settled and everything is awkward. Update, 3 weeks later. The initial shock faded into a different grind. We tried couples therapy for 6 sessions over the next month. Some weeks were small advances. Rebecca answering the phone when I asked, showing up for small practical moments that count, agreeing to delete Sam from social accounts. Other weeks we'd fall into arguments where I would bring up any lapse, and she'd frame it as me not trusting her even after her admissions. Progress felt uneven. Work complications for Rebecca continued. Sam's transfer made the rumor mill loud for a while, and Rebecca had to sit through questions she didn't want. She lost a client that had been lukewarm, and she blamed herself. Those professional falls affected how she saw herself, and sometimes her regret turned inward in ways that made her avoid the conversations I wanted to have. I tried to be patient, but patience ran out in the small ways. Missed calls, passive-aggressive texts, a defensive posture returning under stress. Then a week after a therapy session where things had seemed steady, Rebecca told me she needed space. Not overnight, but more than a few nights away. She said she needed to figure out if she could be the partner she wanted to be without resenting me for pushing. It was the kind of thing couples say when the emotional ledger is in the red. She moved into her sister's place for a month. We tried separation with check-ins. The legal talk was in the background, not immediate, but present enough to change how we navigated each other. I stayed in the house with the dog. There were practical fights. Who keeps what? The car? The insurance? We split furniture, but kept the living essentials because we'd both been too tired for the drama of dividing everything at once. The piece that hurt was that once the decision to separate slipped into language, it made the quiet spaces feel final before they actually were. Texts traded in the early morning were quick and logistical. The deeper things we used to say were quieter and less frequent. Final update, 4 months later. 4 months from when I played the footage and sat people in a living room to watch timestamps, we are separated. We tried hard for several months. We had joint therapy, individual therapy, and friends or family attempted to mediate. Rebecca tried to rebuild her professional standing and looked inward in ways I respect. She changed jobs, took a role in a different city for a fresh start. I wanted to be part of whatever healing she found. But at some point, the accumulation of breached trust and bruised pride made the decision inevitable. We sold the house and split proceeds. We divided belongings in a sometimes awkward, sometimes practical series of days. The dog stayed with me. Rebecca got the plant collection she'd kept alive for years. People we knew took sides quietly. Some friendships didn't recover. That was painful in a way that surprised me. Losing other people's shared stories of us was a grief I didn't expect. There's no tidy moral here. I don't tell this as a triumphant story of, I proved I was right. I tell it because it happened, because the footage put facts in a room where repeating a comforting version of events wasn't possible, and because the truth, the honest, ugly truth, forced both of us into choices. My choice was blunt. Show the pattern and let others see it, rather than keep apologizing to maintain an invented peace. Her choice was the one she needed to make when she realized what she'd done, and that choice led us apart. What I learned in 4 months of messy attempts to stay together is that exposure of truth can free a relationship to become honest or can break the trust beyond repair. In our case, it did the latter. We are both trying to live better lives apart. I sleep more steadily. She calls sometimes to check on how the sale process went. We have the occasional cooperative text about paperwork. Those are the small, adult remnants of a life that used to be fused together. If I did anything differently, I might have pushed for mediation before making a public reveal. I might have asked for a cooling off period and a professional present for the confrontation. I understand that the way I chose to show people the footage was theatrical. I also know what it felt like to be dismissed for months with no real answer. In the end, there's no clean way to expose a pattern that someone else refuses to admit. The footage made it visible. It also made the end real. If you're watching this because you think you're the paranoid one, ask for facts first, set boundaries, and insist on a conversation in a neutral space. And if you're the one being asked, remember that dismissing real concerns with a label like controlling is an easy way out that can leave a partner feeling like their voice is being shut down. Both positions have costs. I don't have a dramatic finish for you. We split. We tried. People will have their opinions. That's fine. This is my account of what happened. A pattern I couldn't ignore, a blunt reveal that forced answers, and ultimately a breakup that followed.